Okay, so that's the session started to record. So we're going to run over Power Automate today. And I'm actually going to start off. I just need to make sure if I'm sharing my audio. I'm just going to stop sharing and start sharing again, just to really make sure. Include system audio. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to start off with a quick video that shows you what Power Automate really is, because it's going to do a much better job of explaining. So you should be able to hear the audio coming through when this starts. Just let me know if it's not.
These days, there's a cloud service to do just about anything. Problem is, there's no good way to get your favorite apps to talk to each other, to connect them, and automate the tasks that are so time-consuming. Or is there? With Microsoft Power Automate, whether you start from a template or create your own multi-step flow across several apps, it's simple. Why constantly check email when you can get a text message whenever someone important emails you? Automating that means you can use that time to do other things. And Power Automate can really help get things connected. Say someone tweets about your company. Set up a flow that follows them, sends a nice reply, adds them to a spreadsheet that gets emailed to you for your approval, then adds their contact to Salesforce or Dynamics 365. You can also get and manage approvals using Power Automate on the web, your phone, or even right from your inbox. And this streamlined approval process works with data in SharePoint, Microsoft Dynamics 365, Twitter, MailChimp, and over 100 other services. And with the Power Automate app, you can monitor, manage, and create flows from anywhere. For tasks that need to happen now, like instantly blocking out the next hour in your calendar, we've designed flows that start with the tap of a button. How about that? That's technology talking together, working smarter, so you can work less and do more.
So that's obviously, yeah, it's a better job than I could have done. It's obviously a Microsoft video, so it's kind of highlighting all the real strength and sales pitchy elements of it, but it kind of gives a flavor of what you can achieve with Power Automate, previously known as Flow. So you'll often see it referred to as a flow in some places, what I'm going to show you through, but it's in a rebrand at the moment to Power Automate. And it kind of forms one of the pillars of what they call the Power Platform at Microsoft. So that's using Power Automate, Power BI, and Power Apps. And there are other things that they're bringing to that group as well. But effectively, these are the applications or the services that you can use to really improve workflow, and anybody in the organization can create an application without any coding knowledge, without any real AI skills. They can create these sort of chatbots and that kind of thing, just from kind of a drag and drop template sort of thing. So I just wanted to highlight that video. The Twitter feed thing's great. I'm going to just look at the kind of the shop front of this. So this is one of the applications that you can't easily get to from the office.com portal. The easiest way to get to there is by going to flow.microsoft.com. So flow.microsoft.com, as I've got up here, it will auto log you in, or it'll ask for you to log in, and it'll put you into the correct area. But this is kind of what the homepage for Power Automate looks like. And effectively, it just is like a shop front, like an app store of things that you might want to pick and do to start with in the homepage. And you can search for things that you might want to be looking at. But I was just going to sort of quickly jump into templates that improve your productivity, for example. So these are, off-the-shelf things that somebody has already created that you can just start adding and using. The way that it shows you what's involved is you get some icons about the services that are involved. So here it's using OneDrive, some Outlook, and there's a delay function that it's using. This one's using your Office 365 account, Outlook a couple of times, and a SharePoint site. So, and it gives you an idea of how many people have used this, because this has been used nearly 300,000 times. And it's anything that you do on a regular basis, be that, hourly, daily, weekly, monthly, yearly, or even ad hoc things that you might want to just trigger based on a certain condition, or you want to push a button to start it. These are the things that can exist. So this will automatically save email attachments to OneDrive, so you don't have to manually save those attachments. This one will save those email attachments to a SharePoint document library. Down here, send a customized email when a new SharePoint list item is created. So SharePoint lists, think of them as Excel spreadsheets. Is probably the easiest way to think of them. So when a new line item is added onto that SharePoint list, get a customized email sent wherever you want it to go. It also integrates with so many different applications, as we saw in that promo video. So here it's Slack, which is a developers tool, so you can get notifications in that application when something's happening onto OneDrive. And it just, this is just the list goes on, really. It's just endless, the sorts of things that you can do, and it's some things that I've been used infrequently. I think one of the most common things is I've seen nearly 1 million uses for it, and you can just flick through this catalog of power automated items and pick the ones that you want to use. So if you're a software developer, you can use it to click a button to create a DevOps work item. You can automatically file bugs. You can sync with Wunderlist. I've even seen there was one where you could automatically create the next version of your software. Obviously, you set up the stuff in the Power Automate Flow application, and then you click a button and it will just automatically spin up the latest a new version of your software, so you can start tweaking or adding things to it on the go. What else? I was just going to flick through most of these just to give you a flavour of the things we can do, and then we'll drop into a couple, and I'll create some live on the screen for you, just to give you an idea of how easy it is. So hiring, onboarding, managing people. So let your manager know that you're sick by a button click, or let them know you're working from home. You can alter this. So when you create one of these, you don't have to have exactly what's prescribed on here, but you let your manager know when you're working from home, or let your team know that you're running late to a meeting, or let your team know that there's an important meeting later in the day that you want them to attend. This kind of automatic alerting process. This manager approval for leave requests, that whole process of you have a set of conditions that you have to follow. I need to look on my team's vacation roster, see if there's anybody else off. No, there isn't. Drop an email to my manager. My manager looks at the list and goes, no, Grant's followed the rules. I approve that time off. He sends me an email back. I then have to email, Linda and Wendy and the other team, say, please add it to the spreadsheet. They then have to log in and do that. You can automate all of that. So you submit the request. It can check for any leave that's already booked for those dates. Your manager gets the alert. They can click a button that says yes or no. They can add some comments. And then if they approve it, it can automatically be added in. So it just helps free up some of that time. So you're not having to do a lot of the standard, repeatable, mundane sort of tasks. You can focus on some more of the complex work. So if you can free up that time where you're doing a lot of that repetitive, straightforward stuff, you can then spend time on more complex. Don't think that we're going to automate ourselves out of jobs and roles. It just allows us to, free up that time of doing the standard activities to become, more involved in some more of the complex work that we can do. So actually, I think this one here is a pretty good one to use as an example. So I'm just going to jump into that and show you what it looks like. I have created one before in case anything goes terribly wrong and I can Blue Peter it. So I'm going to add this one in, and it's just going to bring up this flow. It's going to, and maybe I might need this next week if this cold continues to persist. So it's automatically going to log me into those components. If it's using any of the third-party things, say the Slack system or Wunderlist or Trello, if my login credentials are saved, it will log me in. If not, it will pop up with a little login box and I can provide those credentials. So Outlook.com here is asking me to sign in. So this is possibly where it might go wrong. No. It wants certain accesses, which is fine. I'm happy with that. It's then going to give me the option to continue. And now we're going to get the the standard view within Power Automate of the flow of this. So it looks quite complicated to start with, but it's really quite straightforward. So this is a manual triggered flow. So there'll be a button. When I tap that button, it's going to flow through these next items. So the first thing it's going to do is it's going to go and get my my profile. So my Office 365 profile. It's going to go and get that for me, and it's going to use my mail part. I mean, I don't even understand what half of this is in detail, but it's going to use my mail to trigger the next parts. And now it's got an if statement. Oh, this isn't an if statement. No, it's two things actually. This is doing. It's not a either or. It's going to send an email, and it's also going to send me an email notification. And if this is the failure condition. So if it fails to get this mail, it's going to say this has failed. So it's getting my manager's email address. And if it can't get that, it's going to send me a notification to say, I can't get your manager's email address. And I get that notification. So what it's doing here, it's going to send an email address to this mail object. And that's the mail object that we've defined in this get manager. So it's got my manager's email address and it's assigned it this value. So it's going to send an email to my manager. And if my manager changes in the back end, as I go through my career, this will automatically be updated. It's not hard coded to that individual. So the subject it's predefined is out sick today. I've just clicked in here and it's now given me some options that I can choose, but I can reword that. I can manually change it, or I can pull in some specific items, but I don't need to for this. I'm going to leave it as this. I'm out sick today is the subject. I'm not feeling well. I'm going to be out sick today. It's automatically put in that it's been sent from a Microsoft Flow button. I haven't renamed that Microsoft Power Automate, but but I could change the content of that if I wanted to. And you've got this what they call dynamic content that exists. So you can pull through dynamic content. So if you think about this in other terms and other uses, you could be pulling this kind of stuff in for those sorts of purposes. And then it's going to actually, I didn't do this one before. It's going to create an event. So it's going to put in my calendar that I'm out sick today. And it's got some details in here. So it's got the UTC time now. So it's the start time is now whenever I click that button, and it's going to finish that time. It's all automatically pre-populated to add hours of 8. So again, my coding skills are basic at best, but I can just see from this it's going to add 8 hours for the end time from the start time of this. So it's going to block out my calendar for me as well. So that's really useful. So not only does my manager know that I'm off, but anybody that's got access to my calendar or might be looking to schedule meetings with me is going to see that I'm out sick today, and that's the subject of that calendar item. And then it's going to send me a push notification. It's going to say that it's successfully sent those emails. So that's it basically created. I've not had to do anything. And I'm going to click save, cross my fingers that it works. It's found an error, calendar ID is required. So it's asking me what calendar that I want to schedule that into. So I'm just going to pop that in my calendar. Click save. So the flow's been created, but it's suspended since it uses a combination of connectors that conflict with the company data loss prevention policies or billing restrictions. That's great, isn't it? Angelco's not even here and he's still preventing me from being productive. There's a chance that Angelco could watch this at a later time, so that could be good. There is a way, what I would do now is I'm just going to test this. So up in the top right hand corner, you've always got the options to test the flows. So I'm going to click test. I'm going to perform the trigger action myself, which is for this, the trigger action is just to manually trigger a flow. So save and test. Sometimes the trigger of flow might be it's waiting for a particular condition, a file to be generated, a particular date and time to pass. So it's going through. And then the question is if John Nuttall's on this training, he's configured as my manager and he might get an email. But let's see. So it doesn't look like it's worked on that. So this is where I jump into my Blue Peter mode. So I've created I'm just going to abandon that flow. I'm jumping back into my flow. So I've already done something similar to this. So on the left-hand side, you can see you've got your option for my flows. And I've been dabbling around with this for some time now. But there's a very similar flow that we've got, which is send a working from home today email to your manager. So I'm going to jump into this one. It's going to show me the dashboard for that particular flow. It's got the details and the descriptions in there, but I'm just going to jump up the top here and click edit, and it's going to take us back to that same view that we've got before. So again, this is a manually triggered flow. It's not doing anything different to what we've just seen. It's getting my profile from O365. It's getting my manager from O365. It's got their email address. It's going to send an email to that email address from the manager. Subject's working from home. I'm working from home today, available by any means. This is all the standard stuff. I get a push notification to say it's been successfully sent. And then if it's failed, I get the alert to say that it can't find my manager. So this one I know does work, but when you click save, if you've made any changes, it saves that for you. And then in the top right hand corner, you can click test. And I'm going to perform the trigger action. The trigger action, as I said before, for this is just that button press for this particular thing. And that's now going to run through and send that email. I'm going to click run flow, and it's started. I can now monitor that flow by clicking on that link. I'll show you that in a sec. And it's now going to show me the run history for this particular flow. So I can see that today's date, about 7 seconds ago, it ran and it's been successful. If you've got quite complicated flows with multiple steps that connect out to various systems, you can come here and you can look at the detail. You can resubmit particular ones if they've got particular data sets in there, and you can also download. If you've got a lot of run history, you can download a whole set of flows and the history for that. So I'm just going to jump back. So all it did was it said it's been successful. And the reason I wanted to click it so quickly was so you could see how it's running, but I wasn't quick enough. But that takes you automatically to the runs page, so you can see that particular flow's previous attempts at running. So that's done. I'm happy because it's run successfully. So now it's just showing me here. I'm just going to click back to go back to that sort of dashboard view for that flow. Now that's all well and good, but I'm not going to be at my desk if I want to send a working from home or I'm off sick or any sort of alert. I want to use the button, and generally that's going to be on a mobile device. So I'm just going to switch to my mobile and share my mobile. So we're just going to switch across to my mobile phone. So we can see that up on the screen. So I'm in the Teams app. I'm just going to switch out. So I've gone to the App Store and I've gone and got in the bottom of that, you can see the Power Automate application on the bottom row in the middle. I've downloaded that application beforehand and I've logged in and I've registered with my O365 account. I'm just going to launch that up. It's just, again, it's taking me to that storefront view of here's all the things you can do with Power Automate. But in the bottom section of that screen share, you should be able to see the buttons icon at the bottom. You might have the control panel over your screen, but trust me, it's there. And these are the buttons that I've got available to me on my account. So I've got a send a working from home email to my manager. I can track my expenses and I can track my work hours and work location, because these are some of the other things that I've created as well. So if I tap the send a working from home today email to your manager button, that's going to perform that. It started. It's asking me if I like the app. Let's say not now. At the very top, let's spam John's account a bit more. At the very top, you'll see the little notification that pops in to say that it's been successfully sent. And that, in a nutshell, is how you can create and use buttons on your phone. The other ones that I've created are track my expenses in an Excel online spreadsheet. So this is one, again, it's just an off-the-shelf piece that I've installed, not installed, but I've configured. So I'm going to enter the amount of the expense. So 99 pence. Food and beverages. And then if I want to take a photo of the receipt, I can choose to take it from my library, or I can choose to take a live photo. So here we go, I bought some lockets. So that'll be the receipt. Use that photo. Okay, again, Angelco has got some policies on there that stop me putting those photos on. But if I press done now, it's going to upload that information. So obviously, as you can see, the policy that your company has around the data that you can do makes a big difference. But you can see it's added the expense on with no attachment, and I've configured that to be a spreadsheet that's on a SharePoint site. So I've configured it so that if other members of my team need to upload their expenses, they can have that same button, because you can share these across with everybody else in your team or your organization to have it available. Another one is if maybe you're out and about working on multiple client deals in different locations. Again, you can track your work hours and work location. So that one is just literally used my physical location on the GPS of the phone to tack it into an Excel spreadsheet, and the actual hour, the time stamped it. So we can switch back to the desktop share, and I can show you those documents. So stop sharing on here. Okay, and then let's start sharing on here. So I'm just going to go back into my flows on the left. So I've got the track my expenses. So just going to go into that just in terms of ease of finding where this Excel spreadsheet is. So I'm just going to click edit on here. It's going to take me into that flow. So again, it's that manually triggered flow. And these are the options that it's, again, the off the shelf it's given me, but you can add different inputs. So you can different headings of the fields for that spreadsheet. And then the condition, it's basically saying create that expense in this. So it's in my wind down. Cool. So it's in that, I've configured where to put that particular file. So if I just jump into that folder, OneDrive. Expenses tracker. So has that come up? Where's that gone? So here we can see I've added that expenses entry. The amount that I typed in, the category I chose, it's time-stamped it, and it's also used my GPS location on my device to tag the address. The photo didn't work. There's obviously some data policy that I'm violating just in general. But one did work yesterday, whenever it was I was testing this out. So I managed to upload a document there. And that work tracker one, I'm just going to load that spreadsheet up as well. That, if it comes up, that all that's done is allowed me to, it's automatically date and time stamped and popped my location on there as well. If I wanted to add more detail onto that in that flow, I could edit that. I can add some more columns to the spreadsheet and then put the relevant entries on the actual Power Automate piece for that, and that would allow me to put those details in there as well. So if I wanted to say, I've been at this site for 2 hours, that kind of thing, it'd be really good. So I'm back now. It muted me. You've just seen that, I've literally gone on to the storefront. I've chosen a couple of items that I wanted to use. You can customize and tweak them a little bit as you need to, but I would have not been able to have set up an automated email alert thing to tap a button from home to alert my manager or my team to things, those spreadsheets and the tracking of that. And if you think that I've been able to do that in a few minutes, okay, I've spent a bit of time beforehand in Power Automate looking at the art of the possible and sort of learning through failure, but effectively you can do these sorts of things through the templates and through the shop front. I just want to talk through one example that I saw on I think it was a YouTube video that highlighted there was an organization over in Australia They were a natural resources organisation, and they had several different sites where they were, dealing with the natural resources. So they might have been collecting gas or ore or whatever at different locations. And there was an engineer, and it's his job to travel around those different locations, and those locations could be 30, 40 miles apart. But his job was to turn up at the site, pick up the paper clipboard, and on that clipboard was all the various checks that he had to do at site to make sure that everything was okay. And he'd fill in the paper clipboard, pop it back up on the pin board, and travel off to the next site. And that was his job day in, day out. And then somebody at their head office location realized that they could through the Power platform, they could create an app on a tablet that links to a database that's got this all Power Automate flows in there. So it was somebody, from their operations team. It wasn't necessarily somebody that was particularly skilled in IT, but they had, wanted to dabble and learn about it. So they basically recreated those paper clipboard checklists in a Power Automate application, and they were able to add some automation into there. So normally on the paper clipboard, the guy would start at step 1 and work through sort of 6 or 7 steps saying everything was correct. But when they had the conversation with the guy on the ground, he said, well, actually, if I actually do it backwards, I check step 6, and if step 6 is correct, then I know all the other items are correct. So when he fills in that paper clipboard, he actually checks at the end and says, if that's fine, everything else must be working fine. So they automated that in the system to say, well, actually, let's work it backwards. Whereas the people in head office thought they checked through 1 to 6. And so very quickly in-house, they were able to centralize that data. If they were audited, they didn't have to say to the auditor, well, we need 2 days for somebody to drive out and collect all those paper clipboards and bring them back in. Those files and logs were available on the system for them to check almost instantly, and they just did it in-house within their own organization. And they've been looking for something similar from a software provider or from their own in-house IT development teams, but there was a cost involved, or there was a delay in in getting the time and resource from the IT department to be able to provide something like that. So that person in the operations team was able to kind of on the side, with a bit of spare time or with a bit of time set aside by his manager, come up with something that did that. And it was kind of a bit of a rough and ready application, but once they were able to implement that and start using it and show that the improvements in productivity they got, they were able to actually get some more focus and funding from their organization to turn that into a fully polished application that then started to be used in multiple different areas for multiple different sort of functions. So that's the reason that I just wanted to share Power Automate with you guys today, because it really can, small little gains here and there, and you start to lump them all together, you can start to bring about some really powerful changes in how we work today. So I'm just going to stop the recording there.